Hi, everyone. My name is Lynette Davis, the chief blogger over at summermoon.com. I am so super excited because I have a very special guest with me, my final guest, final but definitely not least, who is here with me to just share some wisdom and knowledge for you so that you can just learn how to do more about defining success on your own terms from some local entrepreneurs who are just doing their thing and putting down their work. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Leslie Burrs, who is the Executive Director over at Opera North, Inc., and he will get more into his story with you. So welcome, Mr. Burrs.
Well, thank you for having me. Been looking forward to this.
Awesome. So, I am a straight-to-the-point kind of gal, and most people who tune into the Black History Now series kind of appreciate that. So we're going to jump in. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, in addition to serving as an administrator for the nonprofit organization Opera North, Inc., in addition to being executive director, I have spent my adult life primarily as a composer and a performing artist. I'm a flutist, and I involve myself in a number of varying genres and formats of performing outlets, meaning I create music in many different ways. As a composer, I've written for as small as just solo flute to duo opportunities for flute and piano, and then growing and writing for jazz ensembles, writing for choirs, then writing for orchestra and choir, and orchestra alone, and being a featured soloist with orchestras performing my works. And ultimately, I had the vision of creating, as a young man, operas to make an American/African-American statement on what people view as an operatic presentation. And so I've created in the last few years three specific operas. We can go into detail about that in a little bit, but I've devoted my life as a flute soloist and as a composer, and also in the role as executive director for Opera North.
Wow, wonderful. So, it's so rare to hear about, as a young man, young African-American men who are, doing such things as composing music and as well as still performing, especially in this particular space, music genre. So, what prompted you to get started, what you do?
I grew up in Philadelphia, and I was very fortunate to be involved with the public school system of Philadelphia at that time. They had a fantastic music program. And so by attending the public schools from elementary school to high school, I was always actively involved with some type of music programming and opportunities. So as a young fellow, I was I started out, of all things, they gave me a test to see if I had any musical skills, musical abilities, and it turns out that I demonstrated a number of skills from their estimation, and so the only instrument they had left was a trombone, and they gave me a trombone and said, "Here, we'd like you to play this instrument." And so that's how I got introduced to music, was playing trombone in elementary school, and then going on and singing in the All-Philadelphia Boys Choir, which was 300 voices strong of all young boys from elementary school, I would say, through middle school, and we did many performances. That was a very big influence on my life, performing the repertoire that the All-Philadelphia Boys Choir was singing, and then I went on to sing in a professional men and boys choir as an outcome of my time with the Philadelphia Boys Choir, and I went on to sing at at St. Mark's Church, where they actually paid the young boys and the professional men. You actually got paid once a month, and that was quite an experience for me to be 10 and making money at singing. And so combining the experiences at St. Mark's, which were very extensive, wonderful opportunities to sing all kinds of music, from Gregorian chant to very contemporary music, and being involved with very strong musicians that were part of the makeup of the choir and the organist of the church. All of those things impacted heavily on my experiences as a young boy and growing up and experiencing creating music. So between doing the church music in the choir and getting paid for it, and then taking the trombone and becoming involved with orchestra, the orchestra school orchestra program, the chamber music program, particularly the jazz ensemble program, and then going on to do All City Jazz Band and playing with very famous people in the jazz band, which included the bassist Stanley Clarke. Those things made great impressions on me, and sort of confirmed that this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so that those kinds of outlets, and going on to take private lessons at Settlement Music School in Philadelphia, which was a very important aspect of my growing up as well, all contributed to making me who I am today.
Wow. What a powerful story. And I know that people who are listening, they can hear that, because a lot of people, sometimes they talk about once they get the success and they reach all these cool awards and everything. So it's good to hear, how you kind of move towards that, to get where you are. That's very awesome. And what a great opportunity, to have when you were still a student, to be able to get paid, basically to get paid to do what you already loved when you were 10. That's right. Really awesome.
Yeah, it was just a very fulfilling upbringing, for me in many different ways. And the environment of Philadelphia was exciting in its own right. So many things were always going on in Philadelphia, and they have so many wonderful ensembles like the Philadelphia Orchestra, and particularly some of the greatest jazz musicians have come out of the city of Philadelphia. And all of those things, once again, really impacted very, very strongly on me. And I was surrounded in high school, in particular at South Philadelphia High School, the young musicians of my age were great players. And that also gave me an understanding that if they could do that, then I could do this as well. And so it helped. Sometimes I was aspiring just to be as good as my contemporaries in high school because they were such fine musicians, And the teachers were such caring teachers at that time. The music teachers, they had a wealth of experience as professional musicians under their belt, and then they brought that to their teaching skills, and conveying all of that to me and the other students helped to allow us to grow and have a very clear picture of what we should aspire to in terms of excellence and quality in our work as performing artists.
Wow, awesome. So we got to hear a little bit about the performing artist side, but I am curious because you do help run a nonprofit. I know that you've heard of of feast or famine. And I know some of those who are listening, especially with regards to being in the field of art, where they have that starving artist stereotype. If you ever experienced, that moment of feast or famine, do you have any, or even if you haven't, I'm sure you probably come across artists who, were kind of down on luck with some things. How would, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who was in that kind of position to help them kind of end that cycle or overcome that cycle?
I'm not sure how to say how to end or overcome, other than I feel, to be quite candid with you, I live in a constant feast or famine lifestyle. Even there, it's one thing. Things can be viewed as success, and there are great components to what I view as being successful. But there always comes that next day that may not be as easy as the previous day, and it might challenge you in one way or another. Some literally where you're trying to find an opportunity or means to secure income for yourself, to allow yourself to get on with paying the rent, to eat, to provide for your family if you're married. But those trying moments are the sometimes most important test in terms of how you respond to the moments. And my most basic recommendation is to try to endure it. Absolutely stay true to yourself. Sometimes acknowledge that this is getting a little overwhelming, but acknowledge it only so that you're clear that I must do something to make this better. Sometimes you have to double your efforts in order to overcome the obstacles that are being presented, and the way that you identify how you're going to overcome these obstacles is what makes you a stronger individual for whatever genre, whatever field you're in, and if it's in the arts, for it by acknowledging and then reacting to it in a way that you make intelligent choices to figure out what's the next steps, and intelligent evaluations as to why am I at this moment in a difficult period. How did I get here? And what are some of the things that I can alter to help to get over the hump, to get beyond this moment and become stronger because of it? Those are the types of things that I find have been useful throughout my entire adult career. And sometimes the famine part, as difficult as it can be, are the moments that permit you to increase your abilities to be better at what you're pursuing.
Wow. That's such a powerful answer. And I think by hearing that, it's kind of sometimes we need, as entrepreneurs, we need permission to go, it's kind of like it's a roller coaster ride. You're up and you're down.
That's right.
And so, yeah, I really, really like that answer. That was awesome. And I think that was really helpful for people who kind of need permission to hear something like, it's going to be okay. There will be times when you're up and there will be times when you're down, but during those times you can build character.
You can, and you have to look a little more into yourself to determine how am I going to get on with this? And you have to answer the first question is, am I capable of getting on with it? And you have to be honest with yourself okay, if I am, then what's required now? There were times when I was a performing artist and I was in circumstances where I was playing with, let's say, I was a guest artist with an international figure in the jazz world. And I was, as a young man, I was saying, okay, this means I've really arrived. This is exactly how I thought it would be, and it seemed like I got there pretty easily, and I was ready to just rest on my previous accomplishments, which were not a lot, but I had tricked myself into thinking. But an outcome of that was it proved I was not always the best player that I could be, which then prevented people from calling me back because I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm already there and everything. I don't need to try to grow. And as soon as I thought that, circumstances would dictate, well, here's the lesson to learn from this. And I was not getting the calls I was supposed to get because I was not allowing myself to grow. You see what I'm saying? And so sometimes a person could be devastated by that, or that's the moment where you do more of a self-assessment as to how you got to this moment. And part of my realization was I needed to take nothing for granted, and I also needed to make sure that I was practicing as hard as I could and living up to my best potential for whatever that given moment was, which also implies there's always more potential if you're in the process of growing, and not get too comfortable resting on wherever you may be at any given moment.
I love that. I love that. That was like, I'm like, I need to type faster. Awesome. So you know what? I want to touch back on something that you were talking about when you were giving that answer. You started to make mention about, you know, what success was, or, you know, how you came to a point where it's like, yes, I met this artist, I got to jam with this artist, this is success. And then you talked more about, okay, maybe that was success for that moment. So one of the big things is kind of like I mentioned at the beginning, that I like to do is give people just different views. So, you know, as they are discovering and rediscovering success for themselves, it's always nice to have a template, you know? So how do you define and measure success?
Well, let me take it back just a little to get to your the answer to your question. And the reason I'm saying that, if you're young, when I was just starting out to become a professional artist as a young man, one of the things I realized is my strength was not going to be creating quote unquote commercial music, meaning creating music that was the trend at any given time for me, because my primary goal was to set out to be an artist and an entrepreneurial artist on top of that, making a way for myself and allowing myself to create opportunities that would not compromise what I envisioned I wanted to create as a performing artist and as a composer. One of the things I realized right off the bat was, since I'm not going to go down the route of creating commercial music or follow trends just for the sake of trying to be successful in that manner, I realized I had to develop additional skills, and I went back and took courses for how to run a business in the field of music, and which happened to cover specifically not how to create and run a nonprofit organization. And so I went back to school to acquire skills that were going to provide a better outcome for me from a business standpoint, where I wanted to stay true to myself as a performing artist and as a creator of art. So I made a point of finding varying ways to generate and increase the skill levels that I had in the varying aspects of what I was doing as an artist. So try to get a business sense. Try to make sure that I was increasing my abilities as a writer and as a performing artist by studying with varying people, learning as much as I could about the varying aspects of the fields that were most interesting to me, that I thought were going to ultimately be incorporated in the music that I was creating and the goals I was setting for myself. And those goals kept increasing, as I mentioned earlier. Originally, I was writing for small ensembles, and then I realized, I want to do something bigger, and it kept growing from small jazz quartet to chamber ensembles to, as I mentioned earlier, ultimately to orchestras, and then creating operas. And the other thing that I think people listening should be aware of is the other thing that's really important is, don't be afraid to take chances, and don't ever talk yourself out of whatever it is you're envisioning for your life. As soon as you find the ways as to why something is not going to work, then you're destined to prevent yourself from ever achieving any of the goals that you may have set for yourself. And sometimes you have to try to do things that are when I say outrageous, what I mean by that is, and I'll give you a great example. When I was approached to create the first opera that I wrote, they asked did I have someone in mind that could write the libretto, the person that would write the text for the opera, write the storyline. And I knew exactly who I wanted, and that person was John A. Williams. He's a very famous author. He's a very famous poet. His works, he's won multiple American Book Awards for his writings, and he was one of my favorite authors when the question was asked. And so I did not know John A. Williams, and I decided I'm going to track him down and see and ask him if he'd be interested in partnering with me to create this new opera. And I had to do the research to find out how to reach him. And in a way, it seemed absurd for me, somebody that he would not have known at all, to be calling out of the clear blue, and I'm calling the author that was my favorite author at that moment, and to see if we could do something together and if he'd be interested. And I tracked him down, and I was able to speak with him, explain what we were going to accomplish if he was interested, and lo and behold, he was willing to do it. And we went on to create an award-winning opera, which is called Vanqui. It's spelled V as in Victor, V-A-N-Q-U-I. And we created Vanqui originally commissioned by Opera Columbus in Columbus, Ohio. And I think everyone would appreciate the fact that through the work that I was doing leading up to that moment, Opera Columbus became aware of me. They did a national search for a composer. They approached me, and I submitted my materials. I went out and interviewed with them, and ultimately, out of the national search, they decided they thought I would be the best for the function they wanted to create this new opera for them. So, I've always, I envisioned before I even imagined that I could actually write an opera or how to go about it, I did envision that one day I would write an opera, and now I've gone on to write 3. So I've always made sure that I stay true to myself, stay true to the vision, So
I love that. Stay true to the vision. Yes, definitely. And I think it's so important that you mentioned you envisioned it. A lot of people take for granted dreaming, envisioning, because they think it's pointless. But I think it always starts with the dream and the vision.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. As for the moment that you enter in your mind, allow to be entered in your mind that it will be pointless, then you've already prevented yourself from moving forward. But the dreaming part, the fantasy part for what you envision for yourself and for your life is the most important step because it gives you the direction to go, as opposed to saying, oh, that's for someone else because I'll never be able to do that,
Exactly. So what projects are you currently working on? Now, I know your awesome social media manager reached out to me via Twitter with an awesome video, and I'm going to share that video on the site because I definitely want everybody to check it out. It's just a quick short, and I think you might have some other things too. So what projects are you working on that you think could benefit some of my readers or watchers or listeners here today?
Well, sure. The project you're alluding to is one of my proudest accomplishments, and it's my most current work. I, as a composer, was approached by, and it's a long title here, Philadelphia's Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services. And ironically, what DBHIDS does is address the issues of mental health illness, also substance abuse, and they have figured out they've created many ways and opportunities to help allow people to be in a state of recovery by creating varying techniques and approaches to allow individuals that are suffering from or families that are impacted by issues of mental health illness, I should say mental illness, and substance abuse. DBHIDS, Department of Behavioral Health and Disability Services, helps to make life better for those through the work that they do. And they became aware of me because of the last opera that I wrote, which involved the technique of us collecting oral histories and then going on and taking the oral histories of elders in a very specific community called New Cortland, the New Cortland residents, and we created a new work which was called Transition Sung Stories, a new opera that I did. And the Department of Behavioral Health was so intrigued by the outcome of that they asked if I could do something similar for the field of mental health and recovery. And so the first project that we've come up with is a new film. And the film, I came up with a concept called Visual Soundscapes, Mental Health Pathways to Recovery. And the first film is it's a pilot film, is called Autumn Journey. And Autumn Journey is a composition of mine. It's a piece that I wrote for orchestra and choir and solo voice and jazz ensemble, and it's all based on a poem that I created of the same name, Autumn Journey. And so it deals with the awareness of self, the acceptance of self, and the beauty of self. And so we decided to let that be our thematic statement for this particular film. And for those who get an opportunity to see the film, you'll be introduced to two people who have taken a journey where they struggled with substance abuse, overcame those struggles, and are now making major contributions to helping others with these types of issues as they work for the Department of Behavioral Health in Philadelphia. And it's very exciting. And the Autumn Journey film is a pilot film. The intent now is to go on, identify new funding sources to allow us to create a series of music/video films addressing varying concerns and issues, and with a focus on stigma reduction for issues associated with mental illness, mental health, and also with substance abuse. So it's very exciting, and this is what we're doing. It's an ongoing project. Through my role as a composer, I will create the vision for the films and also the music for the film. Opera North Inc. will serve as the administrator for the projects, and all of this will be overseen by the Department of Behavioral Health organization in Philadelphia. So it's very exciting.
It sounds like it. And I think that's what actually most attracted me. I probably had some keywords at that time. Now my readers are probably like, now we know. If you don't know, my background was actually in the mental health field. Before I started my business, it was actually in the mental health field, and I specifically worked in the substance abuse unit.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. So now I'm remembering. It's coming back to me why I was so attracted to that, and I wanted to share your story.
Right. Yes, and so this project is a perfect example of how it's another culminating moment for myself. One of my goals as a young person setting out as to become an artist was to make sure that the art that I created, the music that I created, the performances that were given of my works are serving a purpose that go beyond just making a cultural statement, but are assisting in trying to make a stronger statement to help people's lives and communities through art. I feel as though that's very, very important. And ever since my work as a young man to now, I've always found a means to allow for the music to represent concepts and concerns beyond the just the opportunity to play music. It tries to address and provide answers, or at least thought-provoking opportunities for people to become more aware of things that are going on in life outside of or in addition to the music, and the music helping you to take you to another place in order for you to grow by experiencing the projects that I've been involved with.
Yes, and I think art is a perfect medium to do that, because sometimes people don't want to hear the truth, just as it is. But when you present it in such a way, by incorporating it with art, now you have art that has healing properties. And I think that's why this was so very important. It's such a needed thing, especially in the mental health field. I definitely want to encourage those who are in the mental health field, and I know that a lot of my readers are in that personal development and mental health space, the importance, and definitely the leveraging of art and music and these kind of properties into.
I'd like to point out to you that the commissioner of the Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services in Philadelphia is Dr. Evans, and Dr. Arthur Evans, and Dr. Evans is being recognized nationally for the work that he's doing, particularly with recovery care, and he is the one that took the initiative to contact me, because he has made a commitment, knowing that for a lot of people in recovery care or in the need of recovery care, sometimes may shut down if you're approaching them in a direct manner. He thought there's an outlet that might be very helpful by doing it through art, and was what encouraged him to approach me. And we're finding that's becoming very true in terms of how we can convey the message of everyone benefiting from being aware of recovery care and stigma reduction for what stigma gets associated with individuals viewing others that are encountering problems with mental illness. So it was Dr. Evans' initial perspective that allowed us to get to this point to create this work. And I think your listeners might be interested in knowing that one of our goals, as an example for your response to the Twitter post, we are now, and the young lady, Ms. Timbers, Veronica Timbers, our Opera North's branding and marketing specialist and a board member for Opera North, is in the process of working. She and I are working together to create an interactive Facebook page that will allow people to go and experience how the concept of Autumn Journey, the poem itself, the music, and the ways that it will get presented to represent varying emotional responses, so that people will be allowed to go to the interactive Facebook Autumn Journey page, so that they can get to tell their story and allow, maybe it's something that's been weighing heavily on them with concerns with mental illness or concerns with substance abuse with either family members, community members, or themselves as individuals. We're hoping that going to this interactive page will allow them the means to take maybe their first steps or take additional steps to get on with becoming an individual in recovery, or assisting someone who needs to be aware of these recovery approaches and techniques that are being offered and having great success with. So they'll go and they'll be able to interact in different ways. We're in the process of developing the interactive page now, and we're very excited about that, so that the music can be an inspiration to get these individual stories told, just like what you're doing with your work, Lynette. And so, but allowing the story to be told to then further explore what their personal needs are to take next steps. And certainly there will be links there to get them to the Department of Behavioral Health or to others that will that could prove to be helpful to them.
Excellent. And we'll definitely, people are like, all right, awesome. So I'll definitely make sure that I put a link to, if it's ready to go, I'll definitely link that. And, even if it's not ready yet, I'll definitely put it on there once it is.
Yes,
that new Facebook
make a point of keeping you in the loop so that can happen for your listeners.
Perfect. Awesome. So, I can talk all day about art and mental health, but, time does fly when you're having fun and awesome conversations. So I don't want to hold you too much longer. So could you just leave us with one final nugget of advice that you would like to give those who are aspiring entrepreneurs or even aspiring executive directors, of nonprofit organizations?
I just finished reading a book by the President of the United States, Dreams from My Father, which really helped to reinforce how staying true to yourself is really important. Discover yourself, stay true to yourself. And the other book that I'm reading right now is a book on the life of Benjamin Franklin. And there's a phrase there that I was not aware of until in the last few days, but apparently I've been living my life by. And the phrase is doing well by doing good. And I feel that is the most crucial component to what I'm trying to accomplish with my life. Through art, I'm trying to not just do well for myself, but I would be doing well because I'm doing good for others. And I think that is the absolute bottom line. And that allows you to become a better, whatever it is you're aspiring to be. For me, it's always to be a better artist. And when you ask how do you define success, I always wish I was making more money than what I'm making at any given time. But I wake up every day very comfortable with who and what I am because I stay completely committed to the values that have been instilled in me and the values that I want to make sure I stay true to. And so that is the primary definition of success for me, staying true to yourself and trying to do better for others.
I love that. Perfect. Awesome. So, Mr. Leslie Burrs, thank you so much for just taking some time out to just, drop the wisdom knowledge and, love notes over, for those who are reading or actually listening in this case, who tuned in to the Black History Now series. I truly, truly appreciate you stopping by and just sharing with us. And I definitely will share all of your links, anything that you send out. And we'll definitely stay in touch. That's the wonderful thing about social media.
Exactly.
And I'll be sure to share more from you as time goes by. So I'm looking forward to that. And I just again, thank you so much for stopping by and doing this with me.
It's been my great pleasure. Upper North Inc. is embarking on a number of very important works these days, and specifically in the mental health field. And so we're taking a lot of pride in that. So we'll make sure we stay in touch and allow your listeners to become more aware of the things that we're in the process of accomplishing as the days come on, for the days to come.
Perfect. Awesome.
Thank you, Lynn.
Oh, so everyone, thank you so much for listening. And until the next time, peace.